What's up everyone? Panama Canal is an engineering marvel, a dream that took generations to build. When I went through it, I was in awe, amazed about how complex and how it all worked. The fact that human engineering allows ships to travel through a man-made lake up on a mountain that used to be a forest is really impressive. And today I'm going to bring you guys through the newly built, recently expanded Panama Canal. Our ship departed from Asia and our destination is New York, USA. We're taking the easterly route through the Panama Canal, the alternative being westward through Suez Canal. This is during the COVID-19 pandemic, but we sailors have to do what needs to be done to keep the global supply chain going. Food on the table, medical supplies to hospital, supplies for humanity. Our air draft was too tall for a bridge inside the canal, so the day before we had to lower everything on the compass deck, aka the Monkey Island, up top, which is the highest point on our ship. The naval architect who designed the ship had in mind that it's possible some bridges in the world just doesn't have enough clearance, so everything up top has a mechanism that can be lowered down. The main mast, 2 radar scanners, as well as various antennas. We arrived at the anchorage before the cutoff time being about 8 hours before the actual transit. We dropped anchor later that night, had a short rest, and the transit begins tomorrow morning. Next morning, a Panama Sea pilot will board our vessel, and around the same time, the traffic station will call some VHF telling us to lift anchor. Once we arrive closer to Kokoli locks, we get a lock pilot, who's in charge of the vessel through the set of locks. We get 4 tugs before entering the locks, 2 of which will help us align on the aligning structure, this thing. They do it by pushing from the starboard side, so our ship's port side is pressed against the wall, lining up our ship to enter the canal. The 2 side tugs will cast off once we're inside the locks, and so the forward and aft one remain with us into the lock. Their purpose, together with the mooring lines, is to keep the vessel stationary while water is pumped into the locks. One of the tugs will carry the canal mooring crew, about 18 mooring men who will help us with handling the lines to keep the vessel secure inside the locks as we rise up through the sea level. Bridge forward, gate opening. Okay. On the Pacific side, the Kokoli locks. The ship is moored to the port side, and the water basin where the water is being pumped is on the starboard side, right here. Now, you're probably wondering how is it that the ship's side is rubbing against the wall and not getting damaged? I was worried about that too. The canal walls are fitted with these rubber fenders that the ship can chafe on them without leaving marks on the ship. Between that and the skillful maneuvering of the pilot and the captain, the contact is minimum. And even if it does chafe, there's no harm being done, no scratch marks.
Midship. 420. 420.
And so once the lock pilot gets off, the sea pilot takes over, bringing us through Cut, Gatun Lake, both of which is above sea level. A cut through the mountains and a man-made lake. Yes, we are literally sailing through mountains above sea level thanks to human engineering on an artificial lake. There's only a few places in the world where shipping traffic is above sea level on a mountain, so having megaships traveling through is a rare sight. Once we arrived at the Agua Clara locks, there was some delay, so we anchored inside Gatun Lake, waiting for 2 hours. Then, finally, the Agua Clara lock pilot came on board to take command of the ship through the locks. The procedure to get into Agua Clara locks is very similar to Kokoli locks. 4 tugs to help us get aligned to the lock entrance, mooring gang on board to ready the lines. Once we are proceeding in, the 2 side tugs will cast off. The fore and aft tug follow us in. The only difference this time is that we're being lowered back down to sea level. This means that the water drains out of the locks.
Whenever your heart is broken, don't ever forget you're golden. I will find a light in your soul, I'll be there.
It's a mirror image. On the Atlantic side, the Agua Clara locks. The ship is moored to the starboard side, and while the water basin is on the port side.
I will be the light in your life, you'll see clear. I'll be your inspiration, 'cause I know that you'll do just what you're told. I'll be your heart and temptation, 'cause I know that you'll make it on your own. Baby, you can count on me now.
Once clear, we arrive at the Atlantic side. Lock pilot gets off, tug cast off, mooring gang off. Only the sea pilot remains. He'll take us all the way to the Atlantic breakwater, and he'll get off. That's the end of the Panama Canal transit. For our ship, our journey continues. Well, only for a few minutes, because the next port is Colón of Panama, which is just around the corner. So the Colón pilot gets on and we proceed to docking. It's a busy day. The captain have to be on the bridge for about 18 hours of transit and then docking. After Colón, we cross the Caribbean Sea towards New York. If you like this Panama vlog, next week I'll release a full-length version of the time-lapse transit through Panama, uncut, unedited, so make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification for it. If you've got a sailor friend who's never been through Panama Canal before, share this video to them. I'm sure they'll be interested. Until then, see you next week. Hey, I didn't see you there.